Imagine walking into a room and feeling invisible, like no one really sees you. No one really values you, like you have to speak louder, try harder, explain more just to get basic respect. Have you ever experienced something like this, where you know you have depth, you know you have strength, but somehow people still treat you casually, dismiss your opinions, interrupt you, underestimate you? That feeling hits deep, because it's not about ego, it's about worth. Truth most people don't realize: people don't treat you based on what you say your value is. They treat you based on the behaviors you consistently display. Respect isn't requested, it's observed. Worth isn't announced, it's demonstrated. And the crazy part is, most people lower their own value without even knowing it. They over-explain, they overreact, they overchase, they overgive. And slowly, without realizing it, they teach others to see them as optional. Stoicism teaches something different. It teaches that your energy, your discipline, your emotional control, your boundaries, your silence, these things silently instruct people how to treat you. You don't need to dominate the room. You don't need to flex your achievements. You don't need to argue your importance. You need behaviors that quietly radiate strength. Ego isn't about manipulation. It's not about playing mind games. It's about embodying value so deeply that people adjust automatically. When your standards rise, treatment changes. When your reactions change, dynamics change. When your presence changes, everything changes. Breaking down 7 Stoic behaviors that make people respect you without you ever asking for it. These are subtle. These are powerful. And if you master even 3 of them, you'll notice something shift. Conversations feel different. Eye contact feels different. Even the tone people use with you starts changing. The key: this only works if it's real. If it's internal, if it's practiced daily. Stoicism is not performance, it's discipline. Stay with me, because the first behavior alone will change the way. Behavior 1: the power of controlled silence. Imagine being in a heated conversation where everyone is trying to win. Voices overlapping, egos clashing, energy rising. And instead of jumping in to defend yourself, instead of rushing to prove your point, you just pause, you breathe, you look steady, and you let the noise settle. Have you ever experienced something like this, where the person who speaks the least somehow controls the entire room? That's not coincidence, that's controlled silence. And this behavior alone can change how the world treats you. Most people talk because they're uncomfortable with silence. Silence feels awkward, so they fill it. They overshare. They explain too much. They justify themselves even when nobody asked. And without realizing it, they slowly chip away at their own value. Because when you feel the need to constantly explain yourself, you signal insecurity. When you rush to respond, you signal emotional impulsiveness. But when you are comfortable in silence, when you let moments breathe, you signal strength. Stoicism teaches that not every thought deserves to be spoken. Not every reaction deserves to be expressed. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to observe before reacting. That small pause between stimulus and response, that's where power lives. Most people never access it because they live on autopilot. Someone criticizes them, they snap back. Someone challenges them, they argue. Someone misunderstands them, they scramble to clarify. And in doing so, they give away control. Controlled silence flips the dynamic. When someone tries to provoke you and you don't react immediately, it unsettles them. They expect emotion. They expect defense. But instead, they get calm. And calm under pressure is intimidating in the best way. It communicates, I'm not shaken. I'm not desperate to win this moment. I'm grounded. Let's be real, in today's world, everyone is performing. Social media train people to comment instantly, to react instantly, to post instantly. Nobody sits with their thoughts anymore. So when you become the person who doesn't rush, who doesn't overshare, who doesn't need to fill every gap with noise, you automatically stand out. Mystery builds value. When people don't fully know what you're thinking, they lean in closer. They watch you more carefully, and attention naturally turns into respect. Think about the most powerful person in a meeting. It's rarely the one talking non-stop. It's usually the one listening deeply, taking mental notes, scanning the room. And when they finally speak, their words land heavier. Why? Because they weren't diluted. Words are currency. If you spend them on everything, they lose value. But if you hold them back strategically, they become rare. Controlled silence also sharpens your awareness. When you stop focusing on what you're going to say next, you start noticing everything else. Body language, tone shifts. Who's insecure, who's confident, who's faking it. You pick up on subtle disrespect before it becomes obvious. You see power plays before they unfold. Silence gives you information, and information is leverage. Here's something deeper. When you don't immediately defend yourself against every misunderstanding, you show inner security. Weak ego needs constant validation. Strong ego doesn't panic when someone misjudges it. Not every false assumption needs correction. Not every criticism deserves response. Sometimes the most powerful move is letting people underestimate you. Because while they're misjudging you, you're moving strategically. Have you ever noticed how the calm person in chaos becomes the anchor? When everyone is stressed, the one who remains composed becomes the center of gravity. Humans naturally look for stability. If you become that stability, people associate you with safety and strength. That's value. And let's talk about emotional discipline. When someone disrespects you publicly and you explode, even if you're right, you lose authority. Emotion clouds perception. But when you pause, when you hold eye contact, when you respond slowly and clearly, the room shifts. Now the emotional person looks unstable. You look composed. Power just changed hands without you raising your voice. Silence also protects your goals. When you constantly talk about what you're going to do, you get dopamine from talking instead of doing. It feels productive, but it's fake productivity. Real growth moves quietly. Real discipline doesn't need announcements. When you start moving in silence, when you build in private and let results appear naturally, people don't just hear about your progress, they see it. And visible results without constant self-promotion build serious respect. This behavior requires practice. At first, your ego will fight you. It will want to interrupt. It will want to prove you're smart. It will want to correct everyone instantly. But every time you resist that urge, you build inner control. And inner control is rare in a world addicted to reaction. There's also psychological tension in silence. When you pause before answering a question, people assume depth. When you take a moment before responding to criticism, people assume thoughtfulness. That tiny delay creates weight. It signals that your words are chosen, not spilled. But let's make something clear. Controlled silence is not passive. It's not weakness. It's not avoidance. When you do speak, you speak clearly, directly, calmly. You don't mumble. You don't soften your message out of fear. You just don't waste energy on unnecessary noise. That combination, quiet but firm, is lethal in the best way. Imagine being the person who doesn't get dragged into gossip, who doesn't react to online bait, who doesn't need to argue every political debate. People will test you less because they know you're not easy to shake. And when people realize they can't control your emotions, they stop trying. The Stoics understood something modern society forgot. He who controls himself controls the moment. And the one who controls the moment often controls the outcome. So the next time you feel that impulse to jump in, to defend, to interrupt, to prove, pause. Let the silence stretch a second longer than feels comfortable. Hold steady. Watch how the energy shifts. Watch how people adjust. Watch how your presence starts speaking louder than your voice ever could. Because real value doesn't scream. It doesn't chase attention. It doesn't beg to be heard. It stands calm, centered, unshaken. And when you master controlled silence, you won't have to tell people your worth. They'll feel it before you ever say a word. Behavior 2: emotional control under pressure. Have you ever experienced something like this? Someone says something slick, slightly disrespectful, maybe disguised as a joke. And in that split second, your chest tightens, your heart speeds up, and you feel that heat rising, that urge to clap back instantly. Most people react right there. They fire back, they defend, they escalate. And in that exact moment, they lose, not because they were wrong, but because they surrendered control. Emotional control under pressure is one of the rarest behaviors in the world today. Everybody reacts, few respond. And that difference, that tiny gap, is where your worth is either raised or reduced. When you can stay composed while someone else is losing their cool, something powerful happens. The entire dynamic shifts. The emotional person looks unstable. You look solid. People in the room might not say it out loud, but subconsciously they register it. Stability equals strength. Strength equals value. Stoicism is built on this principle. Epictetus taught that it's not what happens to you that disturbs you, it's your judgment about it. In other words, the event is neutral. The insult is neutral. The delay is neutral. The disrespect is neutral. What gives it power is your reaction. When you control your interpretation, you control your emotional output. And when you control your emotions, you control the frame. Most people are addicted to reaction. Social media trained everyone to react instantly. News cycle, outrage cycle, comment section battles, non-stop drama. Emotional impulsiveness became normal. But calm restraint became rare. And rare behaviors automatically create perceived value. Think about the last time you saw someone completely unbothered in a tense situation. Maybe a boss being criticized publicly but responding with steady composure. Maybe an athlete trash-talked but staying focused. There's something magnetic about that energy. It says, I'm bigger than this moment, I'm not fragile. Fragility lowers perceived worth. Emotional stability raises it. Now let's get real. Emotional control doesn't mean you don't feel anything. That's fake. You're human. You'll feel anger. You'll feel frustration. You'll feel ego getting poked. The difference is you don't let those emotions drive the car. You feel them, but you don't obey them. That right there is discipline. When someone disrespects you and you explode, you're proving they can control you. They pressed a button. You reacted exactly how they expected. But when someone tries to provoke you and you stay calm, maybe even smile slightly, maybe even respond slower than usual, you just showed them their influence over you is zero, and that's intimidating. There's also strategic advantage here. When you stay calm under pressure, your thinking stays clear. You see angles others miss. You choose words carefully. You don't say something you'll regret later. You don't damage relationships impulsively. Emotional discipline protects your long-term position. Have you ever noticed how people test those who react easily? If someone knows you snap quickly, they'll poke you for entertainment. They'll trigger you to get a reaction. But when someone realizes you're hard to shake, they stop testing. Because there's no reward, no drama, no entertainment, just calm. And calm people are respected. This behavior also changes how authority sees you. Leaders value emotional stability more than loud confidence. Anyone can talk big when things are easy. But the one who remains steady when projects fail, when tension rises, when mistakes happen, that's the one who gets trusted with more responsibility. Trust builds status. Status builds influence. Now let's take it deeper. Emotional control is self-respect in action. When you react wildly, you often betray your own standards. You say things beneath you. You behave beneath you. Later you regret it, but when you hold composure, you reinforce your identity. You prove to yourself that you are not ruled by impulse. And here's something most people ignore. The moment you react emotionally, you shift focus away from the issue and onto your behavior. Now people aren't thinking about what was said. They're thinking about how you responded. You lose narrative control. But when you stay calm, the spotlight stays where it belongs. The Stoics practiced negative visualization for this reason. They imagined insults. They imagined delays. They imagined betrayal. Not to be pessimistic, but to be prepared. So when it happened in real life, they weren't shocked, they were ready. Preparation strengthens emotional stability. Let's talk practical. Next time someone says something disrespectful, instead of reacting immediately, slow your breathing. Literally slow it down. Keep eye contact. Count 2 seconds before speaking. That pause alone shifts the entire vibe. It shows you're choosing your response, not being dragged by emotion. And when you do respond, keep your tone even. Lower volume slightly instead of raising it. Calm tone forces others to lean in. It commands more authority than shouting ever will. But here's the powerful twist. Sometimes emotional control means not responding at all. Not every comment deserves acknowledgement. Not every provocation deserves your time. When you ignore low-level behavior, you signal that it's beneath you, that you don't operate at that frequency. People adjust to that energy fast. Have you ever seen someone try to argue with a person who refuses to escalate? It's almost awkward. The aggressor looks foolish. The calm person looks composed. Observers side with stability every time. Emotional control also protects your long-term reputation. One emotional outburst can erase years of credibility. One impulsive reaction can destroy opportunities. But consistent composure builds a brand around you. People start saying, "He's solid, she's steady." They don't fold under pressure. That reputation alone teaches people your worth. And remember this, emotional discipline isn't suppression. It's mastery. You're not ignoring feelings, you're directing them. Anger can become clarity, frustration can become focus. Disappointment can become strategy, but only if you don't let them explode outward uncontrolled. The man who can master his emotions becomes unpredictable in the best way, because others expect chaos. They expect ego. They expect drama. When they don't get it, they recalibrate their perception of you. And perception is everything. So next time pressure hits, next time someone tests you, next time the room gets tense, see it as an opportunity. Not to win the argument, but to demonstrate control. Because in that moment, everyone is watching, even if they pretend not to be. And when you consistently remain steady while others shake, your worth rises silently. You won't have to announce it. You won't have to demand respect. Your behavior will have already taught them exactly how valuable you are. Behavior 3: unshakable boundaries without explaining yourself. Have you ever experienced something like this? Someone asks you for a favor you don't want to do. Someone pushes your time, your energy, your patience. And even though you feel that quiet resistance inside, you still say yes. You still over-explain. You still try to soften the no so much that it almost turns back into a yes. And later, you sit there frustrated, drained, maybe even a little mad at yourself. That right there is where people unknowingly lower their value. Because the way you protect your boundaries teaches people how much you respect yourself. Most people think being liked is the goal, so they overcompensate. They agree too fast. They apologize too much. They justify their decisions in long paragraphs, and in doing so, they send a silent message: my time is flexible, my standards are negotiable, my comfort is optional. And people pick up on that instantly. Stoicism takes a different route. It teaches that you are responsible for your character, your time, your energy. And protecting those is not selfish, it's discipline. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he would meet meddling, ungrateful, pushy people. Not to resent them, but to be prepared. Preparation allows you to respond calmly, not emotionally. Unshakable boundaries are quiet. They're not dramatic. They're not aggressive. They don't come with long speeches. They're simple, firm, and steady. No, I can't make it. No, that doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that. And then silence. No long explanation, no nervous laughter, no defensive tone. Here's the psychology behind it. When you over-explain your boundaries, it signals doubt. It makes it seem like your no is negotiable. Like if someone just pushes a little more, you might fold. But when your boundary is short and clear, people sense certainty. And certainty commands respect. Have you noticed how people rarely argue with someone who speaks calmly and firmly, but they often push someone who sounds unsure? Tone matters, energy matters, delivery matters. If your voice shakes while saying no, people feel that weakness. But if you say it steady, relaxed, grounded, they adjust. Boundaries are not walls, they're filters. They protect your focus. They protect your mental clarity. They protect your growth. And when people see that you don't sacrifice your priorities for convenience, they begin to see you as someone with direction. There's something powerful about someone who cannot be pressured. When a group tries to convince you to do something that goes against your standards and you calmly decline, it creates tension for a moment. But that tension builds respect. Because deep down, people admire discipline even if it inconveniences them. Most people cave under social pressure. They don't want to look difficult. They don't want to stand alone. But Stoicism teaches you to be comfortable standing alone if necessary. Your integrity is more important than temporary approval. And here's the truth most avoid. If setting boundaries makes someone walk away, that person was benefiting from your lack of boundaries in the first place. Real respect survives limits. Fake closeness disappears when convenience ends. When you don't guard your time, people treat it casually. They show up late. They cancel last minute. They assume you're always available. But when you start valuing your own schedule, when you decline things that don't align, when you stop rearranging your life for everyone else, people begin to treat your time as scarce, and scarcity increases value. Have you ever noticed how busy people are respected more? Not because they're arrogant, but because their time feels limited. Limited access creates perceived worth. When you're always available, you feel ordinary. When your availability is selective, you feel intentional. Unshakable boundaries also protect your emotional space. Not every debate deserves your participation. Not every drama deserves your involvement. Sometimes the highest form of self-respect is simply saying, "I'm not engaging in that," and then stepping back. The Stoics understood that you cannot control others. You can only control your response. So when someone pushes a boundary, you don't need to attack them. You adjust access. You reduce availability. You change the dynamic quietly. There's strength in calm refusal. You don't need to raise your voice to enforce standards. In fact, the calmer you are, the stronger it feels. Aggression often signals insecurity. Calm firmness signals confidence. Let's get practical. When someone asks for something that drains you, instead of saying, "I'm so sorry, I wish I could, I just have so much going on right now, maybe next time, try this instead." "I can't commit to that." That's it. Stop talking. Let the silence do the work. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Your brain will scream to add more explanation, but resist it. The discomfort is growth. Over time, it becomes natural, and people begin to treat your words as final. Here's another layer. Boundaries don't just protect you from others, they protect you from yourself, from overworking, from overgiving, from overcommitting. When you respect your limits, you operate from strength instead of burnout. Burned out people become resentful, and resentment leaks into tone, body language, energy, but disciplined boundaries keep you balanced. Balanced energy feels stable. Stable people are respected. Have you ever watched someone say no with zero guilt? It's almost shocking because guilt is so common. But that guilt-free refusal comes from deep self-acceptance. They know their priorities, they know their direction. They don't need validation for protecting it. And when you consistently enforce boundaries, people stop testing them, because they learn quickly that pushing doesn't work. And once people realize they can't bend you easily, your value rises. This doesn't mean you become cold or unavailable. It means you become selective, and selectiveness signals standards. Standards signal worth. The world treats you according to what you tolerate. If you tolerate disrespect, you get more of it. If you tolerate being overextended, you get used. But when you quietly refuse what doesn't align, you reshape how people interact with you. The Stoic doesn't chase approval. He chases alignment with his principles. And when your life is aligned with your principles, your presence becomes powerful. So the next time someone crosses a line, pushes your time, pressures your energy, remember this. You don't need to argue. You don't need to justify. You don't need to perform politeness at the cost of your peace. Just stand steady, speak clearly, and hold the line, because unshakable boundaries don't just protect your time. They teach people exactly how valuable it is. Behavior 4, moving with quiet discipline while others talk. Have you ever experienced something like this? You tell people your big plans, your goals, your next move. And for a moment it feels amazing. They hype you up. They say that's fire, that's big, that's next level, and you walk away feeling accomplished before you've even started. And then days pass, weeks pass, the energy fades, the work feels heavier than expected, and suddenly that big vision you announced doesn't hit the same. That right there is where most people lose power, because talking about success feels almost as good as earning it, and that illusion quietly destroys discipline. One of the most powerful behaviors that teaches people your worth is moving in silence, building in private, letting results make the noise. While others are busy announcing, you're executing. While others are seeking validation, you're stacking progress. And over time, that contrast becomes impossible to ignore. In today's world, everybody broadcasts everything. New idea, post it. New goal, announce it. New grind phase, document it. And there's nothing wrong with sharing, but when sharing replaces doing, value drops. Because people start associating you with talk instead of action. Stoicism emphasizes internal progress over external applause. The Stoic doesn't work for attention. He works for mastery. He doesn't need the room clapping before he moves. He moves because it aligns with his standards. There's something magnetic about someone who doesn't brag but delivers. No hype, no countdown, no dramatic declarations. Just steady improvement. And one day, the results speak so loud that nobody can ignore them. Have you ever noticed how surprising it is when someone levels up quietly? They didn't complain, they didn't seek sympathy, they didn't advertise their grind. And suddenly they're in better shape, sharper mindset, higher income, stronger presence. That shock factor builds respect fast, because it signals discipline, not performance. When you talk less about what you're doing and focus more on actually doing it, your energy shifts. You stop chasing approval. You start chasing progress. And that internal shift changes how you carry yourself. Quiet discipline also protects you from unnecessary opinions. The moment you announce a goal publicly, everyone feels invited to comment. Some will doubt you. Some will project their fears. Some will subtly hope you fail so they feel better about their own stagnation. But when you move quietly, you eliminate that noise. Your focus stays clean. Your motivation stays internal. And your growth becomes consistent. Here's the psychological truth. When you repeatedly talk about goals without delivering, people subconsciously downgrade you. They might smile, They might support you publicly, but internally, they categorize you as someone who talks big. And once that label sticks, it's hard to shake. But when you consistently deliver without noise, people upgrade their perception of you automatically. They start thinking this person doesn't play around. They actually do what they say. That reliability builds serious credibility. Credibility builds respect. Respect builds influence. Quiet discipline also strengthens your self-image. Every time you complete something without announcing it, you build private confidence. Not the loud, ego-driven kind. The deep, steady kind. The kind that doesn't need applause to feel valid. And that inner confidence changes your body language, your posture improves, your eye contact sharpens, your speech slows down. Because you know something others don't. You're building. Most people leak energy through talking. They dissipate momentum through constant updates. But disciplined people conserve energy. They put it into reps, into study, into practice, into refinement. Imagine two people in the same room. One constantly talking about business ideas, gym plans, future moves. The other barely mentions anything. Months later, one looks the same. The other has transformed. Who do you think commands more respect now? It's not even a debate. The Stoics believed that virtue is proven through action, not words. You can speak about discipline all day, but if your daily habits don't reflect it, your words mean nothing. When you adopt quiet discipline, people start noticing patterns. You're consistent, you show up. You improve slowly but steadily. You don't complain much. You don't dramatize struggle, you just work. And consistency is intimidating, because consistency reveals seriousness. There's also strategic mystery in silence. When people don't know your next move, they can't predict you. They can't sabotage you. They can't compete prematurely. You operate under the radar, and operating under the radar gives you advantage. Have you ever noticed how the loudest person about their grind often burns out first? Because they were fueled by attention. Once attention fades, motivation fades. But when your fuel is internal, it doesn't depend on an audience. Quiet discipline is long-term power. Let's get practical. Instead of posting every gym session, focus on showing up daily. Instead of telling everyone about your new project, build it quietly. Instead of announcing you're changing, just change. And when results finally surface, they will feel undeniable. No one will question your work ethic. No one will doubt your seriousness. Another powerful layer here is patience. Quiet builders understand that value compounds. Small daily improvements don't look impressive at first, but over months and years, they create massive gaps between you and average performers. When people see that gap, they don't just respect the outcome. They respect the discipline behind it. And here's the deeper truth. Talking about your plans often satisfies your ego prematurely. It tricks your brain into feeling accomplished. But real accomplishment comes from execution. When you delay that ego reward and replace it with action, you strengthen willpower. Willpower is attractive. Discipline is attractive. Consistency is attractive, not in a flashy way, in a solid way. The world is full of noise, full of announcements, full of promises, but it's starving for quiet achievers. Be that person, the one who doesn't need to flex every step, the one who doesn't need validation before progress, the one who lets results arrive before explanation. Because when you move with quiet discipline, people eventually stop asking what you're doing. They start watching. And when people start watching silently, your worth has already been established without you ever saying a word. Behavior 5, refusing to chase. Letting people come to you. Have you ever experienced something like this? You send the long message first. You double text when there's no reply. You're always the one initiating plans. Always the one checking in. Always the one trying to keep the connection alive. And slowly you start feeling something off. like you're investing more than you're receiving, like you're leaning forward while the other person leans back. That imbalance right there quietly lowers your perceived value. One of the coldest Stoic behaviors that instantly changes how people treat you is this: you stop chasing. Not in a bitter way, not in a childish game-playing way, but in a grounded, self-respecting way. You match energy, you reciprocate effort, and if it's not there, you step back calmly. Here's the uncomfortable truth: the one who chases the most usually values the connection more. And humans, whether they admit it or not, tend to value what feels slightly scarce more than what feels constantly available. When you over-pursue, over-text, over-explain, over-invest, you send a silent message: I need this. And neediness, even subtle neediness, lowers perceived status. But when you're willing to walk away from one-sided effort, you communicate abundance. Abundance builds attraction. Scarcity builds value. Stoicism teaches detachment from outcomes. You do your part. You act with integrity, but you don't cling, you don't beg for response. You don't overextend yourself to secure validation. If someone wants to be in your life, they'll make it clear. If they don't, you conserve your energy. Have you ever noticed how people become more curious when you pull back slightly? Not disappear dramatically, just pull back to balance. When you stop over-initiating, suddenly they initiate. When you stop replying instantly every time, suddenly they respond faster. Why? Because the dynamic shifted. Energy teaches people how to treat you. This behavior isn't about manipulation, it's about self-respect. It's about recognizing that your time and attention are valuable. And attention is currency in today's world. When you give it too freely, it loses weight. The Stoics understood that attachment leads to emotional instability. If your mood depends on someone texting back, you've handed them control. If your self-worth depends on their approval, you've lowered your own authority. Refusing to chase means you're okay either way. If they stay, good. If they leave, also good. That calm indifference to outcome is powerful. And here's something deep. When people sense you're not afraid to lose them, they treat you more carefully. Because now they know the dynamic isn't one-sided. They know you're not clinging. Most people fear loss so much that they tolerate disrespect just to keep someone around. They ignore red flags. They accept inconsistent behavior. They excuse lack of effort. And in doing so, they quietly teach others that minimal effort is enough. But when you hold standards calmly, when you don't overreact but also don't overpursue, you create a balanced dynamic. Effort must be mutual. Respect must be mutual. Have you ever met someone who never chases, never begs, never pressures? There's something grounded about them. They move at their pace. They respond when they want. They don't rush to impress. And somehow people gravitate toward them more. Because calm detachment feels strong. Refusing to chase also protects your mental clarity. When you're constantly wondering why someone hasn't responded, why someone pulled back, why someone changed tone, you waste emotional energy. But when your mindset is simple: if they want to, they will, you free yourself. Freedom builds confidence, and confidence builds value. Let's make this practical. If you're always the one initiating conversations, pause, let space exist. If you're always adjusting your schedule to fit someone else, stop. Let them adjust sometimes. If you're always explaining yourself in fear of losing someone, simplify. This doesn't mean you become cold or distant. It means you stop overextending. There's a difference between showing interest and chasing validation. Interest is calm, chasing is anxious. Anxious energy repels, calm energy attracts. Stoicism reminds you that nothing external truly belongs to you. Not relationships, not praise, not attention. All you control is your character. When you anchor your worth internally, you stop scrambling externally. And the wild part is, the less you chase, the more people respect your space. Because now your presence feels chosen, not desperate. Your time feels selective, not guaranteed. Your attention feels intentional, not automatic. Have you ever noticed how people value the friend who isn't always available more than the one who's always on call? It's not arrogance, it's balance. Balance signals self-control, and self-control signals strength. When you stop chasing, you also reveal who truly values you. Because when you step back, the ones who care step forward. The ones who were benefiting from your effort disappear, and that clarity is priceless. Refusing to chase is emotional maturity. It's saying, I respect myself enough not to force connections. I don't beg for seats at tables. I build my own. And that mindset alone shifts how you walk into rooms. You're not scanning for approval. You're not overperforming. You're present, grounded, selective. That energy speaks loudly without you saying a word. Because when people realize you're not afraid to lose them, they start being more careful about losing you. And that quiet shift, how they treat you, is your worth being recognized. Behavior 6, staying unbothered by praise or criticism. Have you ever experienced something like this? One day people hype you up, tell you you're different, tell you you're ahead of everyone else, and you feel on top of the world. And then the next day someone criticizes you, questions you, throws shade, and suddenly your mood drops, your energy shifts, your confidence shakes. That emotional roller coaster right there is where most people lose control of their worth. Because when your identity depends on outside opinions, your value becomes unstable. One of the most powerful Stoic behaviors that quietly commands respect is this: you stay steady whether people praise you or criticize you. You don't get inflated by compliments. You don't get crushed by insults. You stay level. That balance is rare. Most people are addicted to praise. They feed off validation. Likes, comments, recognition, titles, applause, and when that applause disappears, so does their confidence. But the Stoic mindset flips that entirely. It teaches you that praise and criticism are both external. Neither defines your character unless you allow it to. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly that fame after death is meaningless because the people praising you will also die. That perspective sounds heavy, but it's freeing. It reminds you that public opinion is temporary. Character is permanent. When someone praises you and you stay humble, calm, almost indifferent, people feel that strength. You don't oversmile. You don't brag, you don't stretch the moment. You simply acknowledge it and move on. That signals internal validation. Internal validation builds authority. Now flip it. When someone criticizes you and you don't flinch, don't overdefend, don't spiral, it sends a message. It says, I evaluate criticism logically, not emotionally. If it's useful, I'll use it. If it's noise, I'll discard it. That emotional independence is powerful. Have you ever noticed how people test those who crave approval? They'll give small compliments to control them. They'll withdraw validation to see how they react. But when someone realizes you're not controlled by praise, they lose leverage over you. And leverage determines power. The same goes for criticism. When people see that insults don't shake you, that negative comments don't derail you, they eventually stop trying because there's no reward, no reaction, no drama. Staying unbothered doesn't mean you're arrogant, it means you're centered. Centered people move differently. Their posture stays steady. Their tone stays even. Their decisions stay rational. They don't spike emotionally from highs or crash emotionally from lows. That stability builds trust, and trust builds respect. Think about leaders. The strongest leaders aren't the ones who celebrate wildly after small wins or panic after small losses. They stay composed. They understand that both praise and criticism are data points, not identity statements. When you detach from praise, you avoid ego inflation. And ego inflation is dangerous. It makes you careless. It makes you overconfident. It makes you underestimate others. But when you remain grounded, you continue improving. When you detach from criticism, you avoid ego collapse. You don't spiral into self-doubt. You don't waste energy trying to silence every voice. You evaluate, you adjust if necessary, and you keep moving. That consistency is intimidating. Have you ever met someone who genuinely doesn't care about outside approval? Not in a fake, rebellious way, but in a calm, mature way. They listen. They consider feedback, but they don't chase validation. There's something solid about them, because their worth isn't on sale. Social media made this harder than ever. Every post invites judgment. Every action invites commentary. And it's easy to let those reactions define your mood. But when you develop Stoic detachment, you realize something simple. People project their own insecurities. Praise often reflects their standards. Criticism often reflects their fears. Neither is a reliable measure of your value. When someone praises you, accept it politely. When someone criticizes you, analyze it calmly. But never let either control your self-image. This behavior also changes how you speak. You don't fish for compliments. You don't humble brag. You don't exaggerate achievements for validation. And you don't overdefend when questioned. You stay simple, direct, steady. Steady energy commands attention. There's also long-term benefit here. When people know you won't overreact to criticism, they feel safer giving you honest feedback. And that honesty helps you grow faster. Fragile egos repel truth. Strong minds invite it. At the same time, when people know you won't get carried away by praise, they see maturity. You're not intoxicated by attention. You're focused on progress over praise, growth over applause. That mindset builds quiet dominance. Let's make this practical. Next time someone compliments you, instead of over-celebrating, say thank you and keep moving. Next time someone criticizes you, instead of defending instantly, pause, ask yourself, is there truth here? If yes, adjust. If no, let it go. No emotional spike, no emotional crash, just balance. Balance is power, and here's the deeper truth. When you stop needing praise and stop fearing criticism, you become fearless in action. You take smarter risks, you speak more honestly, you move more freely, because you're not chained to approval. Freedom builds confidence. Confidence builds presence. Presence builds respect. And that respect doesn't come from what people say about you. It comes from how consistently steady you remain regardless of what they say. Because when you're unbothered by both applause and attack, people realize something. Your worth doesn't fluctuate with opinion. It's anchored, and anchored people are hard to shake. Behavior 7, choosing self-mastery over winning every argument. Ever experienced something like this? You're in a debate, you know you're right, you feel the facts lining up in your head. You can see the other person's logic falling apart, and there's this strong urge to crush the argument completely, to prove your dominance, to win. Most people chase that feeling. They love being right. They love the final word. But here's the twist. Constantly trying to win arguments often makes you lose respect. Most advanced Stoic behaviors is choosing self-mastery over victory. Feels good in the moment, but self-control builds long-term power. Argue just to win, your ego takes control. Your tone sharpens, your body language stiffens, you become attached to being right, and attachment creates tension. But when you're grounded enough to let small arguments go, people notice. The one who doesn't need to win, every debate looks secure. Security commands respect. Have you ever seen someone calmly say, maybe you're right, or I see your perspective, and genuinely mean it? That level of emotional maturity is rare. It shows that truth matters more than ego, that growth matters more than pride. Stoicism teaches that your peace is more valuable than your pride. Not every disagreement deserves battle. Not every wrong opinion needs correction. Sometimes silence protects your energy more than debate protects your ego. Constantly try to win arguments, people start associating you with tension. They feel defensive around you. Conversations become competitions. But when you choose selectively where to engage, you become someone people feel safe talking to. It builds influence. Influence builds respect. Self-mastery also means knowing when your ego is triggered. Sometimes you're not defending truth, you're defending identity. And identity defense is emotional. But when you pause and ask, is this worth my energy, you regain control. Or walked away from an argument and felt lighter instead of victorious. That lightness is peace, and peace is power. It doesn't mean you become passive. When something truly matters, when principles are involved, you stand firm. But you speak calmly, you don't escalate unnecessarily, you don't insult, you don't humiliate. Humiliating others might feel powerful short-term, but it builds quiet resentment, and resentment erodes respect. Prioritize self-mastery, your tone becomes measured, your words become intentional, your arguments become rare but strong, and because they're rare, they carry weight. People argue daily about politics, about opinions, about trivial issues. But when you're selective, your voice feels significant. So another layer. When you don't chase argument victories, you conserve energy. That energy can be redirected into growth, into discipline, into execution. For this, being right doesn't always equal being respected. But being calm under disagreement almost always increases respect. Stoics believed that wisdom includes knowing what not to engage in. You don't wrestle with every opinion thrown your way. You choose your battles carefully. Selectiveness teaches people something powerful. It teaches them that your energy is valuable, that your time isn't for trivial fights. People stop baiting you into pointless debates. They stop trying to provoke you because they know you won't entertain it. Quiet refusal to be dragged into ego battles elevates your presence. Master yourself. You don't need to dominate others. Control your reactions. You don't need to control conversations. Secure internally. You don't need to prove externally. Internal mastery becomes visible. In your posture, in your tone, in your pacing, in your silence. Feel it. They might not articulate it, but they feel it. Because at the end of the day, the one who conquers. Imagine waking up one day and realizing you no longer feel the need to prove yourself to anyone. No urge to impress, no pressure to explain, no anxiety about who respects you and who doesn't, just calm presence, just quiet confidence, just control. That is the shift, and these 7 behaviors are not tricks or manipulation tactics. They are discipline, and discipline changes your energy. When you master your silence, your emotions, your boundaries, your focus, your detachment, and your ego, something powerful happens. People adjust without you asking, without you demanding, without you chasing, because the truth is simple. The world does not treat you based on what you claim. It treats you based on what you tolerate, what you project, what you consistently embody. When you stop reacting impulsively, people test you less. When you stop chasing, people lean in more. When you stop oversharing, people grow curious. When you stop seeking praise, people respect your independence. When you stop trying to win every argument, people trust your strength. This is quiet power, and quiet power lasts. But here is the real question. Are you ready to live this way consistently, not just when it is easy, not just when it feels good, but when it is uncomfortable, when your ego wants to speak, when your emotions want to explode, when your fear wants to chase, because that is where your worth is built, not in easy moments, but in controlled ones. Stoicism is not about being emotionless. It is about being unshaken. It is about choosing response over reaction, discipline over impulse, self-mastery over ego. And once you truly internalize these behaviors, you will not need validation anymore. Respect becomes a byproduct. Influence becomes natural. Presence becomes powerful. You will not walk into rooms hoping to be noticed. You will walk in grounded, and the room will notice. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these 7 behaviors hit you the hardest? Which one do you struggle with the most? Drop it in the comments and let us build strong minds together. If this video shifted your mindset, subscribe to Stoic Spark for more lessons on mastering yourself. And press the bell icon so you never miss the next step in becoming unshakable. Remember this, the man who controls himself controls his world. Stay steady, stay disciplined, and keep your fire quiet but powerful.